17 days of Operation Epic Chungus, Epic Fortnite Chungus, the Iranian retaliation has shown the world that America is incapable of defending its allies, incapable of defending its own assets. Just completely incapable.
It's a great thing, my son and my family. We have a great golf complex in Ireland, one of the best in the world, called Doonbeg. It's in Doonbeg. And it's been amazing, and Rory McIlroy loves it. They all love it. Great golfers. You have a tremendous golf tradition, and it was chosen for the Irish Open, which is a big deal. That's a big event.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Everybody wants me to be there. You just said, I hope you're going to go.
I did.
And we're going to try. We are going to try, but it would be an honor. But it was a great honor to be chosen. They only choose the best courses in the world for the, for the big opens. It's one of the big ones, the Irish Open. It's really become one of the most important tournaments in the world. It's going to do. I hear it's going to be a fantastic success.
Be a great success.
Yeah. It's a very, Mr. President, very hard. It's a very hard course.
Mr. President, what progress have you made, Mr. President, in getting America's allies to assist the U.S. in escorting those oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we don't need too much help, and we don't need any help, actually. In fact, we just put out a notice. I was watching over the last couple of weeks, and all of our NATO allies were very much in favor of what we did. They thought it was very important. We were just discussing it, actually. Very important that we take out the nuclear threat from Iran, and we've done that very strongly, very powerfully. We've wiped out their Navy, wiped out their military in every aspect. Their Air Force is now decimated. They have no Air Force, no Navy. They have no radar. Their radar is entirely gone. Their anti-aircraft machinery is gone. Everything is gone. Their leaders are gone. I guess one of their top person was, they say, a lot of people say their actual top was killed yesterday, along with somebody else who was responsible for the killing. The man that was responsible for the killing of 32,000 people over the last 2 weeks, he was in charge of the killing of protesters. It's an evil group. I mean, they've killed much more than 32,000 people. And the man who was responsible for that was also killed yesterday. And all of the NATO allies agreed with us. But they don't want to, despite the fact that we help them so much, we have thousands of soldiers in different countries all over the world. And they don't want to help us, which is amazing. I mean, amazing. And I didn't do a full court press. Because I think if I did, they probably would be. But we don't need help. That war has been long prosecuted, as far as I'm concerned, almost from day one. We knocked out many of these things. We knocked out the Navy essentially in a couple of days. But I was surprised to see that NATO, while they agree that it was a very important thing to do, they agree fully. Nobody said, "Oh, you shouldn't do it." They would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month of when we had the B-2 bombers bomb the nuclear potential. I call it the nuclear dust. So I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake. And I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there. The other thing is,
He's like a baby. He's like a child. He's mad like a child. First, the Omani foreign minister came out and revealed that there was a deal on the table that met Trump's demands, but that he instead chose war. And now it is revealed that the British National Security Advisor was also part of the talks, and he too attests to the fact that A, there was no imminent threat from Iran, B, Trump could have gotten a surprisingly good deal if he stuck to diplomacy. But the perhaps most damning quote in the story comes at the end, attributed to an unnamed diplomat. We regarded Witkoff and Kushner as Israeli assets that dragged the president into a war he wants to get out of. On the negotiations front, Witkoff and Kushner are unreliable and are totally seen as Israeli agents by other parties involved with the meetings. Lindsey Graham literally openly admitted that he went to Israel numerous times in order to get the right information from Israeli agents so he could sell this war to Donald Trump. Both Donald Trump and Marco Rubio and numerous other officials at this point have said this is Israel's war and we're fighting it for them. And yet saying it out loud is considered anti-Semitic by the very same institutions that absolutely know this is Israel's war that America is waging on its behalf. It's ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. If you say we went to war for Israel and that's good, there's no problem. If you say we went to war for Israel and that's bad, you're a bigot. Yeah, the pro-Israel hawks upset at me because Joe Kent is listing Israel's influence in this war as a part of the rationale. Might I suggest the president and secretary of state stop talking about Israel's influence on getting into this war and offer other rationale that is even remotely plausible that justifies American troop deaths and $100 billion taxpayer commitment. Tim Miller is right, okay? He's right. The idea that this is the dynamic. This is straight up the dynamic. If you say we went to war for Israel and that is good, there's no problem. If you say we went to war for Israel and that is bad, you're a bigot. It's the same principle that mainstream media applies to Zionism and its conflation to Judaism. If you say Israel is the Jewish state and that's a good thing and we must defend them, then it's good. It's fine. Jake Tapper does it all the time. If you say Israel is the Jewish state and that's a bad thing and we can't defend them, then you're anti-Semite. And the truth is, it is anti-Semitic to just be like, no, this is actually being done for Judaism. But it's crazy. Americans oftentimes have a hard time grasping nuance. But this situation, like this design, this double standard is so silly that the average American looks at it and goes, nah, this is up. I don't like it. That's it. Yeah, Jake Tapper is retweeting that Kent is an anti-Semite. Now, let's talk about why Israel killed Ali Larijani if he's actually dead. There's a high likelihood that he is. Like I said, Israel oftentimes lies about everything, but the one thing that they don't lie about is usually high-profile assassinations, right? Trita Parsi says, I see 3 potential motivations behind the assassination attempt. 1, Israel is trying to literally kill off Trump's off-ramps. Larijani was not only a key figure within the regime who had emerged as a chief consensus builder, but also to kill off Trump's off-ramps, literally someone whose favorite talks to the U.S. and who could build consensus within the system for an Iranian off-ramp at some point. He also favored de-escalation with the GCC states and supported Pezeshkian's message on that point, though not the apology. There had been some efforts by Larijani to speak directly with senior Trump officials in December, for instance, to prevent the war. The Israelis want the war to continue to degrade Iran's military capabilities further, to shift the balance in the region in Israel's favor for years to come. They have fought for more than 2 decades to get the U.S. to go to full war with Iran, and having finally achieved that goal, they do not want Trump to cut the war short. Without figures like Larijani and the Iranian system, Trump's pathways to ending the war just got narrower. Number 2, the U.S.-Israeli strategy may be shifting back to regime decapitation. The reason for this is that it's becoming increasingly clear that reopening the Straits of Hormuz militarily is simply too risky, and there is no international coalition willing to support Trump. But the Straits must be reopened from Trump's perspective because of the impact on energy markets, which eventually will impact gas and food prices in the U.S. and push Trump's own base to turn against this war. But if he cannot open it militarily, then the original idea of regime implosion may prove another path. As such, the killing of Larijani may have been seen as a second bite at the apple. The first bite, the assassination of Khamenei, did not yield results. But a few more assassinations of key figures may, the thinking would go. Now, there is no proof that this is successful. As a matter of fact, there's proof that this has been unsuccessful, right? I mean, they closed the Strait of Hormuz after Khamenei was killed. And they have a decentralized mosaic structure in their defenses anyway. And that's precisely the reason why they've been actively pummeling the Gulf states and Israel as well, and destroying American assets in the region and killing American troops in the region since the decapitation strike took place. So the idea that like Larijani's assassination would do anything but piss off Iran further and cause them to continue their war efforts is ridiculous. But once again, it ties back to Israel's ambitions of destabilizing Iran. Number 3, opportunity. The assassination may have also simply occurred because the opportunity presented itself rather than having been motivated by either a shift in strategy or a sabotage effort by the Israelis to kill off Trump's off-ramps. Either way, while this undoubtedly is a significant tactical blow to the Islamic Republic, it is difficult to envision it considerably impacting Tehran's war execution. Plans for these eventualities had already been established during the June war. Moreover, when relatively moderate voices have been killed by Israel, they have more often than not been replaced by a younger generation of more hawkish voices who oppose Iran's policy of strategic patience, who oppose the June ceasefire, who currently oppose any de-escalation or ceasefire. Whether this was Israel's intent or not, the most likely outcome, nevertheless, is the destruction of potential off-ramps for Trump. Former Deputy Secretary General of the UN and Foreign Minister of Sweden also responds to Trita Parsi's assessment and says, Ali Larijani was one of the key leading figures in the end favoring the nuclear deal JCPOA in 2015. I had long and constructive talks in Tehran with him as the speaker of the Mejlis at the time. Are off-ramps people to negotiate with? Off-ramps as in the people on the Iranian government side that are willing and interested in having talks with the Americans. Okay? Ali Larijani is one of those people. While he is seen as a unification figure inside of Iran, due to his interest in holding the more moderate forces together alongside the IRGC, he's still more of a hardliner than, Khamenei was. However, in the current administration officials that remain in Iran, he was one of the only that has actually talked to the American side in the past. So killing him basically kills the opportunity to come to the table and engage in a sincere ceasefire effort. So Israel is assassinating regime targets that are interested in dealing with America. At the end of this military campaign, there is going to be a point where America and Iran are going to get to they're going to come to the table. The problem is the Israeli side keeps killing all the people that would be willing to talk to the Americans. And the Iranians are responding by putting a person in their stead that is more hardliner than the past person that was assassinated. This already happened with Khamenei's son. Mojtaba Khamenei is seen as a much more anti-Western figure than his father was. What's the point? The point is Israel wants to continue destabilizing Iran and continue sucking America in to a longer war effort that they will not directly participate in. Israel is not going to put their sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. Israel knows that they can get American boots on the ground, however. That's it. And if they invade Iran militarily, this might actually devastate the American economy. It might collapse what remains of confidence that people have in America being a stabilizing figure in the world. But it's very obvious that Israel doesn't make these calculations. Israel is thinking, oh, well, America is the most powerful military on the planet, which is true. So if they go in, even if America actually suffers devastating blows in the hands of the Iranians, there will only be more appetite for death and destruction on Iran by the American public. They're gambling here. Their bargain is they can get America into this long war. They can push America into this long war with boots on the ground, military occupation. They don't care about the logistical hurdles that America simply cannot overcome at this stage. They just want short-sighted death and destruction of Iran. They want the Iranian state to collapse. Why, though, Israel doesn't care about their troops dying? They absolutely do. A source familiar with private plans and discussions tells me Ali Larijani was, for the U.S. and Israel, the most favored transitional candidate as of September 2025, but became a target early February 2026. Vote blue or Netanyahu. Yeah. The source said Larijani became a target when he pushed for crackdown on protesters, took front seat in lashing out against U.S. and Israel, assumed key role in strategizing the IRGC kinetic actions, in particular against the Gulf states. Anyway, let's continue with this.
And I think, very important, we didn't have to be there for Ukraine. Biden chose to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine. And I guess the head of Germany just made a statement that, they weren't involved and they have nothing to do with the war. But at the same time, they think we did a great thing by knocking them out. Nobody wants to have Iran, or anybody, but nobody wants to have Iran with a nuclear, because these people are crazy. They're absolutely crazy, and they're vicious, violent. I mean, they killed, think of it, they killed, now I hear it's about 41,000 people. They put out a notice 2 days ago. Anybody that protests will be immediately shot and killed. That's pretty tough stuff. So everyone agrees with us, but they don't want to help. And we as the United States have to remember that because we think it's pretty shocking.
President Macron has just said in the last hour that he will never join a task force in the Strait of Hormuz until hostilities finish. Yet yesterday you said...
Who said that? Who said?
President Macron of France. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Well, he'll be out of office very soon, so we'll have to see. I don't know.
Mr. President, Trump, on Doonbeg, you're building an extension to it at the moment, but there's been an objection put in, and it's being held back at the moment due to small snails. What are you disappointed about that?
No, the planning commission is
I have not heard that. No.
Mr. President.
I mean, the course was built and it's been operated very successfully. Somebody's objecting. Human and environmental group is objecting to.
What the?
Mr. President.
Okay, I'm not alone. I guess they're having issues too, huh?
At least. Qatar has been great. UAE has been been great. Saudi Arabia has been terrific. Bahrain has been very good. The Middle Eastern countries have been very strong in their support. And of course, Israel has been our partner. Israel's been very, very strong, along with
That's not on my end.
Against Iran. If you look back ago, I talked about Iran was a big threat to this country, to this world of ours, and turned out to be. I was right. In fact, I said you have to attack Karg Island. You have to attack them years ago when they were acting up. They've been acting up for 37, 47, I guess now 48 years. For 48 years, they've been bad players, vicious players. And you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. If they got a nuclear weapon, I would say they would have used it within 24 hours after having it. And they would have had it if we didn't bomb them out from that great raid with the...
Yeah, if they had a nuclear weapon, Israel and America wouldn't be doing what they're doing currently, just so you understand. Just so we're clear, if they had nukes, there would be regional stability.
B-2 bombers 8 months ago or so, you would have had a nuclear war in the Middle East and maybe beyond. I think it would have hit Europe. Maybe not Ireland, but it would have hit Europe. I think you would have been a nice piece of it. It all gets you. It's big enough that you would have been affected. They would have hit Europe eventually.
Mr. President, your Director of National Counterterrorism, Joe Kent, he just resigned today. He said he can't support your conflict with Iran. What's your reaction to that? And did you?
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that President...
Yeah, this is also crazy. Oh, dude, yeah, our head of counterterrorism was actually weak on terrorism. He was weak on countering terrorism. If you thought he was weak on security, why would you hire him as a lead on counterterrorism is the question that any competent journalist should be asking the president currently.
They should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if, I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there, loaded with cash? Hundreds of millions of dollars. You would have been very happy. This was a wonderful, they said hundreds of millions. People forget that. Does anybody remember? Right? You remember. Hundreds of millions of dollars in a Boeing 757. I think they had two of them loaded. They took the seats out and they put cash. And it was so much that there wasn't a bank in Virginia, Maryland, or D.C. that had any money left. They stripped them of all their money, put it into place, sent it to Iran, almost as ransom. That's not going to happen with Trump. And nobody ever did anything about it. Nobody ever said anything about it. Can you imagine if I did that? So they've been a threat for a long time. But they've really been a threat. If I didn't terminate Obama's horrible deal that he made, the Iran nuclear deal, you would have had a nuclear war 4 years ago. You would have had nuclear holocaust, and you would have had it again if we didn't bomb the site. So when somebody is working with us that says they didn't,
this is all bullshit. Like every single thing that he's saying here is, Iran was not a nuclear threat. Iran was not an imminent threat. Iran having nukes obviously is something that the American government and the Israeli government would never allow them to have. Like, you don't want any foreign adversary to have nukes, clearly. But if we're pulling ourselves out, like, because you're not the American government, I'm not the American government, you're an ordinary American citizen. If you're like looking at this seriously, of course, Iran and every other foreign adversary or any other nation in the periphery having nukes objectively leads to them being able to develop in the ways that they want to. It allows them to have sovereignty. So that's just facts, okay? If Iran had nukes, the region would be more stable because Israel would not be able to behave in the belligerent ways that it is behaving currently. Obama has literally been out of office for a decade, but this old man refused to let his petty grievances go. Yes, Obama was the last effort. Obama was the last effort. The JCPOA was an objectively good deal for American interests. That was dealing with Iran through sanctions relief and dealing with Iran through diplomacy, something that they were very clearly interested in doing, especially because Ali Khamenei had a fatwa on no nuclear weapons regardless, right? And all of the the uranium enrichment that they were engaging in after Donald Trump came in and destroyed the JCPOA was simply so they can have an upper hand and leverage in the negotiations. Agree 90%, but they didn't allow inspection of certain sites. That's not true. Iran was faithfully following through on the JCPOA agreements through and through. That's just not correct. Because the JCPOA was not just a bilateral commitment between the United States of America and Iran. The JCPOA is a multilateral agreement that actually brought in China, Russia, and the European Union as collaborative partners. The International Atomic Energy Agency had literal round-the-clock surveillance inside of Iranian facilities, and I believe they still do for many of the facilities that haven't been destroyed or whatever. So the idea, they had cameras on the enrichment sites. So the idea that Iran was sneakily still developing a nuclear weapon is incorrect. At least during I remember reading something like that in 2018. I wasn't fully aware. Yes, that was a lie. You got duped by Israeli pro-Israel media. Okay. As a matter of fact, I will go so far as to say that not only was Iran abiding by their commitments to the JCPOA, they continue to do so after Trump openly said, we're throwing the JCPOA in the pile. It's over. It's done. I'm ripping it apart. Iran still continued abiding by it. Iran was still continuing to abide by the agreements. Okay, like the agreements outlined in the JCPOA, and not only were they continuing to follow in good faith the negotiations and the limits that were placed, they even allowed European investigators access into the sites after Donald Trump said that he was throwing this deal in the pile. Okay. It was only after Donald Trump added secondary sanctions to the IRGC and secondary sanctions to Iran did they say, all right, we're going back to nuclear grade uranium enrichment. And they started enriching uranium beyond the civilian limit that they had previously abided by. Okay. That was only after. It wasn't even after Donald Trump said openly that JCPOA is done. They did it after Trump added sanctions. And the reason why they actually started enriching uranium once again beyond the civilian levels was so they can establish leverage in the next round of talks that would inevitably take place. That was the reality. And there was literally here in 2018, just like with the Iraq WMD situation, just like with the Iraq WMD lie, when there were international investigators that actually said, no, America is lying. We have we've seen the sites that they claim have WMDs. These sites do not have weapons of mass destruction. And America said, you, okay? The exact same thing happened with Iran complying with the nuclear deal restrictions, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency report in 2018. Okay? Iran has remained within the main restrictions on its nuclear activities imposed by a 2015 deal with major powers, a confidential report by the UN Atomic Watchdog indicated on Thursday. America lied about it, though. The Trump administration said, nuh-uh, that's not true, for no reason other than the fact that Israel did not want this deal to stand. That's it.
Didn't think Iran was a threat. We don't want those people because, and there are some people, I guess I would say that, but they're not smart people or they're not savvy people. Iran was a tremendous threat. And virtually every NATO nation, and this is the thing, if they told me it wasn't a threat and therefore they don't want to help, but when they say it was a threat and it was a major threat, every one of them, I think every one of them, I don't know of one that said they're not a threat.
It is not Israel. Please read the relevant sections of that paper. Which path the project explicitly lines this out to make the deal appealing to international powers so that any lack of compromise from IR would be seen by global powers as they brought it on themselves. Do you know of that paper released by CSIS, I believe? Read mine, please. It is not Israel. Please read the relevant sections of that paper. Anyone that tries to tell me that Israel wasn't the primary spoiler of this multilateral deal that was placed, that was literally put in place even before Barack Obama, like the Iran denuclearization agreement took a decade to accomplish, okay? It took a decade to accomplish. It required China and Russia's cooperation. It required European partners' cooperation. The International Atomic Energy Agency is basically an institution that is 90% tasked with Iran. That's it. That's like the only... It's crazy because, like, you would think that they are actually abiding by like the non-proliferation treaties and taking a look at like every country with nuclear arms and you know, their nuclear facilities and what kind of nuclear warheads they have. No, it is almost entirely tasked. 90% of all of their efforts are specifically designed around ensuring that Iran is abiding by the standards of the JCPOA. Okay, Israel was the only spoiling party in the JCPOA. They hated it. They hated Obama for accomplishing it. And when they got their guy in charge, Donald Trump, they immediately got Donald Trump to throw it in the pile. So if Larjani's dead truly, which I guess 99% he is, what would be the next move from your perspective? I think that overall IRGC and affiliates should avoid public appearances first and foremost. I mean, yeah, they shouldn't be out and about. I don't know why they would ever put themselves out there, especially when like Israel still has tremendous surveillance capabilities inside of Iran and has like established air superiority when necessary, right? Yeah, I don't really understand why they put themselves out there as sitting ducks. You're telling me Israel killed the last martyr with actual influence inside the Islamic Republic who could have ended this war? Now, why would Israel do that? It's almost like you're saying they are a country driven by an unstoppable lust for war, death, and destruction. What Israel is now doing is eliminating people within the Islamic Republic who advocated for strategic patience and who would be amenable to negotiating an off-ramp in the future. In other words, creating the context for an endless conflict. Going back to the 2015 JCPOA deal, though, that Donald Trump ripped apart, even after Donald Trump said that the Iranian government was not abiding by the agreement, European partners actually counteracted that. They said, no, that's not the case. Iran is actually following the negotiations in good faith, just so you understand. And yet, of course, American media fucking lied about it at the time. I covered it, but no one really gives a shit. Let's be real. Just like right now, there is a heightened amount of scrutiny around like the ways in which Israel operates. And even then, there's still plenty of average normies who don't understand any of this stuff.
But when they say it was a threat, but we're not going to help, I think they're very foolish. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting because I could say this, that what's happening in Ukraine, we're probably in there for $400 billion. We don't spend any money anymore. They buy it from us and they pay full price. But Biden gave them between $350 and $400 billion of equipment.
What a joke. It wasn't a moderate. He was responsible for forced concessions from people. No. That's why I said he's not. He's a moderate in comparison to the current leadership of Iran. Okay, you have to understand. Ali Larijani was considered not a moderate but pragmatic. Okay, he was in the current administration in Iran one of the most moderate figures that remain. Okay. People like you, by the way. What do you mean? Oh, you're saying yes. He engaged in tremendous repression against Mossadegists and communists. Yeah, I know, dude. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's so stupid. Yeah, you think I don't know that? What are you talking about? I'm very aware of that. I'm not. Oh my god. These guys. It is utterly irrelevant. Now, don't you think? No, he's not wrong. He's trying to do the classic thing where it's like, oh, the IRGC forces were tremendously repressive towards communist Iranians and Iranians that align with your framework, with your perspective. You think I don't know that? I do know that. Yes. Also, what do I always say? Even the most moderate figures, okay, even the most moderate figures within the Iranian government have always been endlessly repressive and very brutal when it comes to their own domestic affairs. Okay? Yeah, I know. Part of that is part of that is the fears that they might lose their grip on power. And part of that is due to instability born out of foreign intervention. But ultimately, it currently doesn't matter. At this stage, it doesn't matter, especially if we're talking about sovereign states communicating with other sovereign states, or state versus state violence. It's utterly irrelevant in this process. So yes, it is true that Larijani was very brutal when it came to squashing protests, when it came to cracking down on protesters. That is true. Larijani was the epitome of a power broker. He could work with anyone and has been deep in Iranian power for decades. He was always a principalist, but he was a pragmatist. He had a working relationship with moderates, clerics, and the IRGC, which was basically unique only to him. Yes. His death, if true, means the IRGC will harden their stances and will completely refuse to work with the moderates unless there is another figure in the Iranian government that I don't know about that is capable of bringing these forces together. People who watch you for a few days seem to think you think highly of the Iranian government, even though you criticize them all the time. I guess Americans can't handle criticism of their war without a sentence like the IRGC is very bad. No, the reason for why they get mad at me is because I do also say something that is very frustrating for a lot of people in the diaspora, a lot of people who are very upset with the Iranian government's like domestic repression. And that is, it is utterly irrelevant in this current calculation. Okay? The Iranian government's crackdowns are utterly irrelevant in this calculation. Israel and America has shown that they have no interest in like liberating the Iranian population. I never believed that anyway. I never lent it any credence whatsoever. And I also understand the calculation that foreign adversary governments take when dealing with any sort of domestic instability. That's the reason why people think I'm like sympathetic to the IRGC. Between the IRGC as it stands, the Iranian government, the regime as it stands, is the only hope that the Iranian people have in keeping this country intact. Okay? If the IRGC falls apart, if the current government cannot hold itself together, there is no more Iran. Iran falls into permanent conflict, sectarian violence, ethnic tensions. It gets balkanized by foreign invaders, and it is destroyed. Okay? Thousands of years of culture and history is destroyed. It's gone. Okay? That is the reason why, yes, as far as taking a principled stance against intervention here, yes, I'm saying very openly that the IRGC, regardless of his brutality internally, regardless of his repression, is literally the only hope that Iranians have, 93 million Iranians have, in staving off a balkanized failed state that Iran will become if Israel gets its objectives across. It's possible his power is already waning. I don't know if I trust the claims, but I saw reporting that Larijani was working with Hassan Rouhani behind the scenes to prevent the IRGC from pushing a supreme leader through the assembly until after the war was over. If Larijani is truly gone, the IRGC is the only pillar left with real power. Civilians, clerics, military. Yeah. Wrong assessment, in my opinion. It is the only assessment. It is the only correct assessment. There is no next day plan. Okay. There is no separate government. There is nothing. It's either IRGC or Libya. It's that simple. It's either IRGC or Libya. Anyone that believes that Iran can be balkanized and become a better country as a consequence of that is delusional. More often than not, wrong in that Iran will probably hold itself together regardless. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Balkanized, like as in chopped apart, region by region. Man, you don't have to present every dead Iranian government as some moderate. This guy is the guy who killed all the protesters. Israel, but don't glaze the guy. Just don't mention him. Love you, Hassan. By the way, you're doing it, Tucker Carlson. Jews did this, Jews did that. A sober assessment of Larjani and the role that he could possibly play in the negotiations that you hear not only from me, but from literally like you hear from previous heads of state is not me glazing Iran or glazing Larjani. It's me just giving you the truth. Okay, even if you don't want to hear it. A moderate figure in the Iranian government doesn't have to be a cheery guy, okay? He's not like some bold, brave revolutionary. It's so ridiculous. Also, I don't know what Jews have to do with this at all.
In cash, someday they'll have to find out about the cash. And you could say that wasn't a threat, you know? We're helping them. So we helped them. And they didn't help us, and I think that's a very bad thing for NATO.
Mr. President.
Are there any repercussions for NATO, and are you still going to China?
Well, yeah, on China, it's a little different story. We're resetting the meeting, and it looks like it'll take place in about 5 weeks. We're working with China. They were fine with it. We're going to say, I look forward to seeing President Xi. He looks forward to seeing me, I think. But I do look forward to seeing him. We have a good relationship.
Oh, by the way, for the record, another thing that I do sincerely stand on is that, yes, regardless of like what Iran contributed to in Syria, for example, all of that still in mind in this calculation, Iran is better than Israel. Yes, 100%, and better than America too. Regardless of every single death that Iran contributed to in the region, they are still a better force, regardless of every single Iranian that the Iranian government killed. Even with all of that calculation in mind, when you compare it to Israel's actions against people that it currently occupies, the Palestinian people, it's not even a comparison. That's part of the reason why the Israel First crowd has actively said, oh, Iran killed 30,000 people. Iran killed 80,000 people in a matter of a day and a day or two. The reason why they say that is so they can try to bring up in the Western world like the reputation of Iran to like something that's even remotely comparable to what Israel has done to the Palestinians. Okay, the real number is somewhere between 7,000 and possibly like a more liberal estimation would be 10,000, which is an incredibly high number. It's completely unacceptable, but it is utterly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. It's utterly irrelevant in this calculation because America is murdering school children. America and Israel are blowing up desalination plants. America and Israel are attacking Iran and decapitating the heads of state with the overarching goal of destabilizing Iran and turning into a failed state. The number of casualties, the number of deaths, the number of displaced will be in the millions. Okay? It's just not even a question.
With China. China actually has become economically for us very good, as you know. It's much different than it was in the past. And we have a very good working relationship with China. So we're making it in about 5 or 6 weeks.
Mr. President.
NATO for not supporting you on this. Any repercussions?
Well, no, I just think that it's not good for a partnership when they say what you're doing is a great thing, but we're not going to help.
Yeah, 30 to 50,000 deaths in less than a week would leave mass graves visible via satellite. Tons of people actually killed over foreign operatives. Yeah, no, it's just, it's ridiculous. Like I've told you already, it's not only ridiculous, but it's utterly irrelevant, made up. It's completely made up. The idea that like Iran killed, 50,000, 80,000, or even 30,000 people in a matter of 2 days. I think the 10,000 number is already incredibly high. I'm saying like the highest estimates are like the Harana estimates are around 7,000, which I think is it factors in virtually every single person that's being killed. Donald Trump keeps throwing ridiculous numbers around as well, and it's just, you know, they're doing it with no care or consideration for people who have actually been killed. They're doing this because they think it's good for propagandizing why they're bombing Iran.
You know, they say what you did is a great thing, but we're not going to have it.
Mr. President.
In Iran, because the Iranian regime has told Sky News, if you put boots on the ground in Iran, it will be another Vietnam. Are you afraid of that?
No, I'm not afraid of. I'm really not afraid of anything.
Mr. President, are you rethinking the United States' relationship with NATO possibly getting out?
Well, I'm disappointed in NATO that we spend trillions of dollars on NATO. Think of it, trillions over the years, many trillions of dollars. It's one of the reasons we have deficits and we help other countries. And when they don't help us, I mean, it's certainly something that we should think about. I don't need Congress for that decision. As you probably know, I can make that decision myself. I'd work with some very smart people. And I'd always deal with Congress anyway, but I don't need Congress for that decision. But, you know, when you say rethink, I have nothing currently in mind, but I will say that I'm not exactly thrilled when we help them with Ukraine. Look, Ukraine would have been over in one day if we didn't help. Frankly, Ukraine would have been over in the first day. They had the best equipment in the world. It was our equipment, given by sleepy Joe Biden. No charge, no charge. Hundreds of billions of dollars of the best equipment in the world, no charge. I will say that I'm not happy about it.
Mr. President,
Mr. President.
Relationship with
Two questions, one on Iran and one on Cuba. Is Iran now a bigger foreign policy priority for you than China? And on Cuba, the Cuban government.
Iran is just a military operation to me.
Base
Iran
Trump,
is
go Trump,
something that
forever.
was essentially largely over in 2 or 3 days because the Navy was wiped out almost immediately. The Air Force came next. The anti-aircraft came next. I mean, we're flying over Iran. We could take out their electric capacity in 1 hour. We have all the, there's nothing they can do right now because everything is knocked out. They have no radar, no anti-aircraft. They have nothing. And we don't, and it was a decision I made. We discussed it. Pete, Marco, JD, all of us, Chris, we discussed it. We can knock out their electricity in a matter of minutes if we wanted to. There's nothing they can do about it. We can knock out their oil in Carg Island. The only thing we didn't take down was their oil because if we knock out, I call them the pipes, very complex. But if you do that, it'll take them forever to rebuild, meaning whoever, and hopefully it's a sane group of people, but whoever it is that's going to be running that, and we're going to try to get people that are going to run it well, and you know it's going to be a prosperous, wonderful place. It used to be, you know, if you go back, it used to be the people are great, the people are smart and energetic, and it used to be very successful. Now it's a country run by fear. It's a country where they tell protesters, don't go outside because if you do, we're going to kill you.
Why do you hate the Poles and repeat Polish jokes from the 20s when we were not considered white in the same way as the Irish? I love Polish people.
Mr. President.
Well, Cuba right now is
Notice how you had to go back to the 1920s, by the way. We live in 2026. Poland just surpassed Switzerland with its economy. I think you're doing fine, you know? If you have to go back to 100 years in the past for to point to like Polish oppression, it's a little ridiculous. I think Poland's doing fairly well, all things considered, especially as the rest of the European countries are not doing well at all.
very bad shape. They're talking to Marco, and we'll be doing something with Cuba very soon. We're really focused on this, but we're dealing with Cuba. Marco, do you want to say a couple of words about it?
Yeah, I mean,
Cuba has an economy that doesn't work and a political and governmental system they can't fix it. It's not dramatic enough. It's not going to fix it. So they've got some big decisions to make over there.
But Secretary Rubio, do you support, and I know this is up to Congress.
I hate this. I hate that they are like also actively warmongering against Cuba and starving Cuba and killing Cubans. It's so nasty.
Do you support easing the trade embargo if you get more cooperation from Havana?
Well, I'm not going to discuss what we would talk about or not. Suffice it to say that the embargo is tied to political change on the island. The embargo is codified. And but the bottom line is their economy doesn't work. It's a non-functional economy.
Yeah, it doesn't work because of our endless repression against the Cuban people. For the record, a lot of people don't understand that. For example, right now, the administration is floating the idea of allowing Cuban Americans to be able to purchase private property in the island, right? This has been a long-standing attitude that the Cuban government has had, okay? In spite of the potential destabilizing repercussions that it might have, it opens up a new front of American intervention in the island. They don't give a shit. They've been saying yes to it since the normalization agreement with Barack Obama. They're fine with it. The only setback against Cuban Americans being able to make investments into the Cuban island is not the Cuban government, it's the American government. This is a lie, okay? This is a lie that the American government actively repeats. It's remarkable. I'll show you. A professor of political science, Orlando J. Perez. Okay. Before you rush to invest in Cuba, it's good to know what U.S. law actually allows. The Cuban Assets Control Regulations, CACR 31 CFR Part 515, prohibits U.S. persons from engaging in virtually any transaction in which Cuba or a Cuban national has an interest, including investments without a specific OFAC license. I also know this from our dealings with even sending humanitarian aid to Cuba. We had to work with the Treasury to be able to get clearances and OFAC, specifically OFAC clearances, so that we can send even one solar panel to the Cuban population. You understand? It's absurd the amount of restrictions that the American government has placed on anyone that wants to help with aid to the Cuban population or anyone that wants to engage in any sort of investment opportunity in Cuba. Literally needs to deal with the American government. No current general license covers what Havana just announced. This is the Cuban embassy in the U.S. that just announced government decision to facilitate the participation of Cubans living abroad in the country's economy, announced by Deputy Prime Minister Poliva Oscar. Allow Cubans living abroad without actual residency in Cuba to participate in or own private businesses in Cuba. We lie and we lie and we say like, oh, Cuba has no private markets whatsoever. Cuba has no small businesses. All of this shit is a lie, okay? They do. Not only do they have, is this presented as like a black market when it's not. It's like the government allows small businesses to operate. But also outside of that, the government has been saying since the Obama administration that they're perfectly fine with foreign Cubans, okay, Cuban Americans investing in businesses inside of Cuba. Anyway, we obviously got into the Cuban part. I'm running ahead of my own commentary here, but I'm not done with the situation monitoring in Iran, especially as new information is coming up.
But we're not ready to leave yet, but we'll be leaving in the near future. We'll be leaving in pretty much the very near future. But right now they've been decimated from every standpoint. And again, we've had great support from countries in the Middle East, great support, but we've had no support from, essentially, no support from NATO.
Mr. President, what about your relationship, Mr. President? What about your relationship with London? Has it been damaged by the fact that Keir Starmer isn't supporting you in this war? And has your opinion of Keir Starmer changed because of this?
Well, he hasn't been supporting a real administration to make a deal.
It's crazy how bad
but we
the
made a deal.
is. White
For
House,
them,
it seems.
Frankly, probably wasn't appreciated. I do look forward to seeing, but no, I was disappointed because Keir was willing to send 2 aircraft carriers after we won, because essentially there's no threat for the aircraft carriers right now. And I said, no, we
It's literally not true.
want things sent before the war, not after the war is won. So, yeah, I'm disappointed with Kerr. I like him. I think he's a nice man, but I'm disappointed.
Do you
Mr. President.
You see that man right there? You know who that is?
Churchill.
Winston
That's
Churchill.
the late, great Winston Churchill. And Barack Hussein Obama did not want his bust in this office. Did you know that? And Barack Hussein Obama sent that bust back to England. They didn't want it. And when I came in, I was asked if I wanted it. I said, absolutely, I want it. And I put it right there, Winston Churchill. And, you know, unfortunately, Keir is not Winston Churchill.
Do you have
Mr. President, it pissed on me.
No, hold it.
Again,
Just could I
Hold it. Hold it.
just make a number of points? First of all, I think, notwithstanding what has happened, the transatlantic relationship between Europe and the US is very, very important on a number of fronts. And I think we've had issues over the last year or two, but we settled them. And I think many of these leaders engage a review, particularly on trade initially. Remember all the fuss last year, but we got a landing zone between Europe and the US, and I think we can get a landing zone again. And I think I just met with Keir Starmer last week. The British-Irish relationship is a very important one. Churchill was a great wartime leader, although in Ireland there was kind of a different perspective in terms of during our own war of independence and so on. He created his own bit of difficulties for us, but that said, he was a great wartime hero. Keir Starmer has done a lot to reset the Irish-British relationship. I just want to put that on the record. But I do believe that he's a very earnest, sound person who I think you have a capacity to get on with, and you've got on with him before, and you've got on with other European leaders as well.
Sure.
And I think you have that capacity again, and I think everyone exists. I mean, you cannot have...
It's so funny that this is the one time when Donald Trump is talking about Keir Starmer and saying he's not like Winston Churchill. It's actually good for Keir Starmer. As much as I hate Keir Starmer, he is right to not want to engage Iran militarily at the behest of Israel and America. It's so crazy that this is like causing me to say Keir Starmer is correct on this issue.
A rogue state with a nuclear...
Part of the reason why Keir Starmer has to play a stronger role, of course, is because he has his own domestic problems at the moment. His associations with Epstein affiliates and his party actually cratering in support and losing out to the Green Party is the reason why he literally cannot abide by America's wishes and behave like a vassal that he normally would love to behave as, right? But that is a big part of the consideration here. That's precisely the reason why he has to, play a stronger hand against American demands of intervention.
Weapon, or the capacity for nuclear weapon. Iran was a sponsor of terrorism. We sanctioned Iran, all European countries did, as a and the IRGC in particular as a terrorist organization. They sponsored Hamas, they sponsored Hezbollah, the Houthis. They created mayhem, a most maligned force in the Middle East. The Irish position has always been ultimately, can we resolve this can we get peace? And obviously there's preconditions before you get to that situation. We had our own conflict, which went on for 30 years, and we learned a lot from that in terms of how to try and bring about peace. And I think I've listened to you in terms of, you're correct. I mean, our hearts go to the
Michael Martin, dog of the Imperialist era, West Brit cook.
Iranian people
West Brit,
who have been repressed and suppressed for so many
I saw a piece about Starmer being against the Iraq war, so he might just dislike wars. He loved the Israeli genocide of Palestinians, okay? It has nothing to do with him being an anti-interventionist. He's not. Keir Starmer is not a real human, okay? He's not like a human being with goals, dreams. He is basically a mouthpiece for American and Israeli interests and capitalist interests in the country. The only reason why he has to take a different stance right now and not be a for America and Israel is because, like I said, he has tremendous domestic considerations at play. Okay? Are you an Iranian or a Turkish dog, by the way? I am a dog for the working class, no matter where they are. Okay? I don't make these sorts of like state considerations.
years, culminating in that savage murder of thousands and thousands of Iranians some months ago. No one was in a position to do anything about that.
I care about ordinary people. Sometimes a state's interests might align with the ordinary people's. In this circumstance, the Iranian state, regardless of its domestic repressions of the past, being intact is going to be beneficial for the ordinary Iranian people. That's it.
I think, and likewise with Ukraine, I mean, the Russians did invade Ukraine, have taxed civilian infrastructure and so on like that. And for the people of Ukraine who just want peace and an opportunity to live, I think we have to continue to work to see, can we bring peace, different regime to Iran where Iranians can live in peace again, and the people in the Middle East can live in peace, and you're doing your bit there in terms of the work in Gaza and so on like that. And I think that's what we want, is a peaceful resolution of conflict. That's where we come from as a small nation. Right. We've been peacekeepers all our lives, and we're the longest serving nation in terms of provision of peacekeeping forces in the world, as it turns out. But we think ultimately all conflicts come to an end, and I think we have to try and work towards that end, and I'm sure European leaders and the US administration will engage, and hopefully we can get a landing zone. So,
I mean, the only thing, and I agree with everything you said, but we helped with Ukraine.
Yes.
And they don't help with Iran. And they all acknowledge that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. You yourself say, these are horrendous people. These are the worst people, and going back to Hitler, right? Going back to Hitler, these are the worst people. That's a long time ago, and there's been nothing close. Every problem, so many deaths, 90% of the people that got blown up by landmines, they loved them. Soleimani, we killed him. If we didn't, it might be a different story, because he was a horrible person, but he was a very powerful person and leader, smart. But we killed him. If we didn't, I think you'd have it. I did. But I think it would have maybe a different situation. It wouldn't have been so easy as it has been, because it has been very easy. It's all of their military is there, but you can always have somebody drop a mine in the water. It's like terrorism.
Yep.
And then you have the people that own the billion-dollar ship saying, well, let's not move that ship yet because we want. So we thought that Europe would help that, because they do have some minesweepers. But it's amazing that...
No, the real reason why they want an international coalition of the willing is clear. It's because they think they can apply more pressure to the Iranian state to stop if they make it seem as though there is more support for this military campaign beyond America and Israel, regardless of how unpopular it might be in those countries. And it is very unpopular. Okay? That's the reason. It's mostly just symbolic. It's like... To basically say the entire world is against Iran. There is a little bit of PR interest here, okay? That's it. And so far, the European leadership has not budged. They've said, no, we're not doing that, which is good. The irony, of course, is I think, when push comes to shove, if you were to ask, like, whose side are you on? I think most people, not the governments, but most peoples would be in support of the Iranian government over the Israeli or the American one.
It's really simple, Mr. Berman. It's really simple. The people in those countries hate the U.S. military action in Iran. What do we talk about here? Okay, net approval rating, U.S. military action in Iran. In Canada, way underwater, minus 27 points. You think that's low? Thank you, Mr. Berman. You think that's low? Take a look here in Japan. Negative 73 points. My goodness gracious. Way down there.
Canadians, what the is that, man? Minus 27 only? What level of is this, bro?
How about in the UK? We're talking about 34 points underwater. Key U.S. allies, the people in those countries, absolutely despise the U.S. military action in Iran. No wonder the leaders in those countries are, let's just say, a little apprehensive about helping out the U.S.
So compare this to the environment in 2003, and I'm picking that point because that was the beginning of the U.S. intervention war in Iraq. How did people in these countries feel at the beginning of that war compared to now?
Okay, so you see these numbers are quite low. They weren't always this low when it came to U.S. military action in the Middle East, because take a look at this situation. Okay, shift in net approval rating, U.S. military action in Iran now versus in Iraq in 2003. In Canada, way down. We're talking down, get this, 27 points. How about in Japan? Down way down there, down 45 points. How about in the UK? And of course, there was UK involvement in that particular war. Look at that, down 48 points. So what we're seeing is a massive, massive shift when it comes to how the people, our allies, people in those countries, are viewing the U.S. military action in the Middle East.
This was gross even back then, by the way, but it shows how much more power and dominance America had. You know what I mean?
Far less popular this time around. No wonder the leaders in those countries want pretty much absolutely nothing to do.
But this also is a reflection of America's capabilities diminishing as far as manufacturing consent, even at the domestic home front, right? Even at the domestic level, right? Toronto Persians give LA Persians a run for their money. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen the ones that are, I've seen the insanity
with this conflict, because they know there are big electoral consequences if they do, and not good electoral consequences.
What's happening overall with views of America abroad?
Yeah, okay.
This man is also misrepresenting this. I bet money the average person in those countries hate America now. My old ass parents were actively hating you guys now. Yeah. I think that the Trump annexation threat was like a atom bomb that woke up a lot of Canadians, which is part of the reason why someone who is like a neoliberal like Mark Carney would come out and be like, oh, we need a new world order for the middle powers. Like, he would have never made a speech like that if he didn't realize that like there is a lot of appetite in Canada to stand up to America, which of course he's not doing in his policies. There's plenty of room for Mark Carney to push back against American interventions, but he's not doing that. It's just like pure aesthetics. But still, it's too early to tell, but I saw someone compare this adventure by the U.S. and the UK to France's attempts during the Suez Crisis, the moment that a global superpower was no longer able to project its power to achieve a major geopolitical objective and proved it was over. I don't think it's too early to tell. I think America's capabilities have diminished dramatically. I think the confidence that people had in America as like the hegemonic superpower is gone. It's obvious, because America was completely incapable of defending its own assets in this region. It showed the world that an American security contract means nothing. It means nothing. It is a pure exposure as far as the paper tiger goes.
So you see these numbers, you see these shifts down in terms of how our allies or folks in those countries view U.S. military.
For the record, that much is clear 17 days in, whether America and Israel somehow through a Hail Mary pull through or not. Do you understand? Because like America and Israel could still, I don't know, deploy the metric ton equivalent of multiple nukes on Iran, and somehow like there's pure destabilization, you know, make the Iranian population really suffer something, right? There's always more appetite for death and destruction. Let's say they accomplish their goal and create a failed state in Iran. That still doesn't change the reality that in the first 17 days of Operation Epic Chungus, Epic Fortnite Chungus, the Iranian retaliation has shown the world that America is incapable of defending its allies, incapable of defending its own assets, just completely incapable.
Action in the Middle East. You see how unpopular it is this time around. Canada, Japan, the UK. And this is just part of a larger picture, Mr. Berman. A larger picture. Favorable view of the U.S. in 2025 versus 2024. Of course, Donald Trump being the president in 2025, Joe Biden being the president of the United States in 2024. Look at this. Favorable view of the U.S. down 79% of 24 countries' residents asked. The bottom line is this. The folks overseas are far less likely to view the U.S. favorably, and those chickens, they're coming home to roost in this situation, as there's very little support abroad for the U.S. military action in Iran.
Yeah, I don't understand why. Oh, man, these guys just don't understand how hot we are, I think. Everything else aside, Joe Kent's resignation clearly rattled the administration, and it goes to show you what a massive moral and strategic failure it was that supposedly more principled restrainers did not. Yeah, hard quote. Lies written in ink cannot disguise facts written in blood. America makes every bullet for the federal government in one site. They make every artillery shell on another single site, which is actually just the other side of the same building. We can make like 50 Tomahawks a year, and those are built in one building. We demolished our defense industrial base and are now shocked that we can't fight for more than like a week. Yeah.